Most Roblox games die in months, maybe a couple of years, but Lumber Tycoon 2 has been alive for over a decade. How? Wait, how did I get up here? Uh-oh. At this point, everyone on Roblox has heard of Lumber Tycoon 2. Okay, I know. There's obviously always going to be some exceptions with people that actually haven't heard of it, but it's safe to say that most of the people watching have. I feel like this is one of those games where you never even had to play it, but the name still somehow bounces in your head. And honestly, you don't even have to play the game to recognize it. Everyone's seen that one iconic base. The wooden house with conveyors that's literally the thumbnail of Lumber Tycoon 2. That base became the poster child of the game. It's like the Eiffel Tower of Roblox. Even if you never stepped foot in LT2, that image alone is burned into your brain. Roblox has had hundreds, actually, scratch that, thousands of games that came and went while time went on. You don't even need to be an OG Roblox player to know what I'm talking about. I bet in the span of a year there's been countless games that fell off. The point that I'm trying to prove is that Roblox has been a massive platform for well over a decade. Actually, if we're being real, I could name so many that fell off harder than KSI's hairline. Meep City, that game went from everybody's late night hangout to whatever it is now. The Plaza, RIP. Apocalypse Rising, that thing had its peak and then poof. And honestly, that's just how Roblox works. Games blow up, everyone plays them for like a couple of months, and then they just vanish. But here's the thing, Lumber Tycoon 2, it never left. It just kept chilling. That's what makes it so special. Most games are like shooting stars. Quick, bright, gone. But LT2, that's the North Star of Roblox. Always there, always shining, even if you haven't looked up at it in a while. Even though the page says 2009, Lumber Tycoon 2 really launched in July 2015, which means this game just hit 10 years, and people are still grinding for more rare presents and building their dream bases. That's insane. Hey, on a side note, I think Defaultio deserves like a celebratory cake or something because I swear people don't talk about this game enough. So let's rewind all the way back to 2015. Roblox was a completely different place compared to what it is today. The games page was filled by many types of games, but back then, one of the biggest genres was tycoons. And when I say tycoons, I'm talking about those classic dropper factory games. You know, the ones where you press a button, a cube comes out, you collect money, and then just stand there around waiting to buy the next upgrade. It's the same cycle every single time. Click, upgrade, wait, rinse and repeat until your base is maxed out, and then you leave because there's literally nothing else to do. Now, don't get me wrong. There were also more creative tycoons back then, like Retail Tycoon or Theme Park Tycoon, that actually let you design things and express yourself a little more. But even those games still put you inside a box. Retail Tycoon forced you into running a store, and Theme Park Tycoon forced you into building a park. You had freedom, but only in that specific theme. And that's where Lumber Tycoon 2 broke the mold completely. It wasn't just another factory clicker, and it wasn't a themed builder where the game told you what you had to make. Instead, LT2 gave you an axe and land, and said, go crazy. That's it. You decide what you want to do. You want to chop trees for hours and grind for rare wood? Go for it. You want to build a shop, a mansion, a castle, or even a whole town? The game won't stop you. Your imagination was literally the limit, and people went absolutely wild for it. Even me. I spent countless hours grinding, collecting axes, flexing whatever crazy build I was working on at the time, and I wasn't the only one. On its very first day of release, Lumber Tycoon pulled nearly 10k players. Maybe today that number doesn't sound insane, but you've got to remember, this was almost a decade ago. Roblox was way smaller back then. 10,000 players in 2015 was massive, especially for a brand new game. That was front page domination. The hype spread instantly. Content creators were making tutorials, base showcases, an entire series dedicated to just chopping wood. Servers were packed with people trading items, grinding together, and showing off their builds. And the craziest part, it never felt like a one and done game. This wasn't something you played once, finished, and then left behind. This game was sticky. It kept pulling people back because there was always another base to expand, another rare item to hunt for, or another crazy idea to try and build. If the standard Tycoon games felt like story mode on rails, Lumber Tycoon 2 felt like being dropped into full-blown free roam. The sky really was the limit. So what do you say we talk about the golden age of Lumber Tycoon 2? This is a time when the game wasn't just popular, it was everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean your friends list, your recommended page, YouTube videos, streams. All roads led back to LT2. If you weren't playing it yourself, you definitely knew someone who was. This community is honestly what made LT2 special. People weren't just playing it casually like some random simulator. They were dedicating insane amounts of time to building these crazy bases that looked more like real life locations than the Roblox bricks. I'm talking shops with organized aisles, garages filled with trucks, entire skyscrapers, and even functioning towns. The amount of creativity was insane, and it turned into this culture where showing off your builds and your gift collection became just as fun as grinding the actual game. And if you know, you know, the grind was real. Everyone remembers staying up late trying to farm money, hunting for those trees like Spookwood or Bluewood, and flexing when you finally got your hands on rare axes. The Rookery axe, the Alpha axe, the Beta axe. People treated these things like actual trophies, and once you had them, you already know you were showing them off to everyone. By the way, who remembers that hoax of being able to get the Beta axe from Underwood or Us? But of course, with a game that big, the economy eventually took on a life of its own. And this is where the community got a little wild. People started trading items, setting up in-game shops, and even scamming the hell out of each other. If you played back then, you probably either got scammed or scammed someone else at least once. I can't lie, I've been on both of those sides. And be honest, I know I ain't the only one. It was basically part of the experience. There were dupes, glitches, and straight up tricks that people used to rip off others. And while it did kind of ruin the economy for a while, it also became a huge part of the culture. Stories of massive scams spread through the community like urban legends. Don't trade with this guy, he'll steal your truck full of presents. And we can't forget about the content creators. Back then, YouTube was flooded with LT2 videos, tutorials on how to get rare wood and dupe items, role plays, also as I mentioned earlier, base showcases. And of course, you can't forget about those fake videos where people would place presents in some random corner of a shack and say that you can find them there. They really had it all. This boosted the game even more because it wasn't just fun to play, it was fun to watch. Every time you saw someone else's base, it gave you new inspiration for what you could build. And that right there mixed with the updates kept the community alive and constantly coming back. That's what made the golden age of Lumber Tycoon 2 so iconic. Whether you are a grinder, a builder, a scammer, or just a guy messing around with friends, LT2 had something for you. And that mix of freedom and community is why people still talk about it to this day. Now, as much as I'd love to sit here and just praise Lumber Tycoon 2 forever, we gotta be real. The game wasn't perfect. And the longer it stayed alive, the more problems started to pop up. Most of them were small annoyances, and some of them straight up changed the way people played the game forever. Let's start with the biggest one, duping. If you don't know what that means, duping is basically when players figure out ways to duplicate items, usually through glitches. Of course, I myself have never done that before, and in a game like Lumber Tycoon 2, where valuable woods and axes were supposed to be hard to get, duping was a complete game changer. You'd see entire bases stacked floor to ceiling with rare axes that people had duplicated, and yeah, it was funny at first, but it completely destroyed the economy. Trading didn't feel the same once you knew half the stuff out there was glitched into existence. And it wasn't just dupes, scamming got worse too. Remember in the last chapter when I said scamming was kind of the part of the culture? Well, dupes made it way worse, because now scammers had more tools to bait people with. They'd flash a rare axe or show off stacks of special wood just to trick you into bad trades. Whole YouTube videos were dedicated to exposing scammers or teaching people how not to get scammed. There's even a list going from A to Z exposing LT2 scammers. If you played LT2 back then and you never got scammed at least once, I don't believe you. Then you had the whole grind problem. LT2 was addictive, but it was also brutal. Chopping trees, hauling logs, loading trucks, and building structures, it all took time. Like, a lot of time. For hardcore players, that was the fun of it, but for casual players, it eventually became too much. Not everyone wanted to spend hours just transporting logs across the map, so a lot of players would burn out and quit after a while. That's part of why the game started to shrink from its peak. Not everyone was built for that kind of grind. And of course, we gotta talk about Defaultio. Now don't get me wrong, the dude's a legend for even making this game, but his dev style was kinda mysterious. Updates were super rare, and sometimes he'd just disappear for months at a time. It was more like he'd add something cool out of nowhere, then vanish again. For some players that added mystery to Lumber Tycoon, but for others it was frustrating. People wanted regular updates, bug fixes, new content, and most of the time, they weren't getting it. So between dupes breaking the economy, scams running wild, the heavy grind pushing players away, and the lack of updates, LT2 definitely started to show its cracks. It never fully died, but it was no longer that unstoppable force it was at launch. The community had to adapt, and honestly, that's where things get really interesting. So we've already talked about the rise of Lumber Tycoon 2, its golden age, and even the problems that almost tore it apart. But the real question is, why is it still alive today? Roblox games aren't built to last forever. Most blow up, float above water, then slowly fade out. Apocalypse Rising, Assassin, Meep City, they all had their moment, then vanished into thin air. Just like that. When games stop receiving updates, people feel like the devs don't really care and they abandon it. But Lumber Tycoon 2 broke the rules. It It launched in 2015, and nearly a decade later, people still can't get enough of it. That kind of survival doesn't just happen. LT2 thrives because it's given players freedom from the beginning. No checklists, no barriers. You join Lumberland with nothing but your imagination and $20 in your pocket. It also had that mystery that we all know and love. And most of all, it's had the one-of-a-kind player base. People weren't just grinding wood. Unknowingly, they were building one of Roblox's most loyal communities and creating memories that will never leave. And that right there is why Lumber Tycoon 2 is still standing tall, nearly a decade later.